What's more dangerous than we all realize? Story 1. Driving a machine that weighs thousands of pounds at significant rates of speed, surrounded by other people operating these machines and hoping they know what they're doing. Answer: I struggle with this every time I drive. My impression of the motor skills, coordination, intelligence, and judgment of the average person is pretty low, yet here I am within feet of hundreds of strangers going 80 mph in takedown machines. How much vetting would any of us demand before we put our lives in the hands of complete strangers? The answer is, apparently, not much. I guess the cost-benefit risk analysis really favors the convenience of driving. Story 2. Cleaning chemicals that you may purchase at your local stores. Research before you mix and keep away from children. Story 3. Skin cancer, specifically melanoma. A good mnemonic to remember: moles suspicious for melanoma. A. Asymmetrical. B. Borders irregular. C. Colors, more than one color in a mole. D. Diameter, 6 mm. E. Evolving, mole changes over time. This is the most important risk factor. If caught early, melanoma has a good prognosis. If it has spread systematically, the prognosis is poor. Answer: I have a little brown dot that appeared on my leg like maybe a month ago. Do moles just pop up? And do they look like early melanoma? I know I need to go to a dermatologist to figure this out, but I'd like some initial insight from someone other than Google first. I'm only 33 and wore long pants most of my life, till like my mid-20s when I stopped caring about my hairy legs, lol. Story 4. Sun tanning. The rates of skin cancer is growing exponentially, and most people don't realize the damage they are subjecting themselves to. Always wear a sunscreen or blocker. Protect yourself. Answer: not that it isn't sound advice to protect your skin, but people spend less time outdoors and use much more sunblock than ever before. The ozone hole has been improving. The increasing rate of skin cancer almost certainly has to do increasing lifespan and an aging population. There's some illusory effects in epidemiology from the fact that when, due to medical advancements, safety regulations, and consciousness, fewer people die from things that affect everyone regardless of age, there will be more people dying from diseases like cancer that are associated with age. It's definitely not an exponential increase in any case, but I presume you just meant a lot. Story 5. Not sure how much others see this, but I see people going under a car with just a jack, and no jack stands a lot more than I should. A jack is only meant to lift the car, not hold it. Without jack stands, even the slightest shift can cause the car to fall. Jacks can give way pretty easily, and they're not designed to hold the car up for extended periods. Story 6. AI. Not in the ITL becomes sentient way, but the effects it has on individuals and societies is extremely concerning. Story 7. Silica dust. It's one of the most dangerous things most people don't even think about. Found in wall spackle that gets spread when it's sanded down, cement siding, concrete, drywall, tile, brick, and even regular dirt. Crystalline silica becomes deadly when it's disturbed and turned into fine dust during cutting, sanding, or demolition. These tiny particles are invisible and light enough to float in the air and get deep into your lungs. Over time, exposure can lead to silicosis, an incurable lung disease, as well as lung cancer, COPD, and kidney damage. What's worse? Most DIYers and even some professionals don't wear proper protection, and this dust often gets pulled into HVAC systems and spread throughout homes. It's like asbestos, but quieter, more common, and just as deadly. Answer: The irony of the longest word in the English language being a deadly lung condition has always been a source of laughter to my dark-humored self. I built far too strong of a mental image of someone laid out in a hospital bed as the concerned family asked, "What's wrong?" Only for the poor soul to begin wheezing out, "Pneumono, gasp, ultra, gasp." Yeah, I'm twisted. Story 8. Surgery. The number of fairly healthy people who die from fairly routine surgeries or while recovering from them is much higher than I ever expected. It's also underreported. My wife worked on the orthopedics floor and would see people code a few days after joint replacements. She also watched a good number of people die under anesthesia while on her surgery rotation. I am not saying it's a super common thing. It's just much more common than I would have thought as someone who doesn't work in healthcare. Code either from or as a result of a routine surgery. It's more of like an every other month thing. Story 9. Roadside memorials. Maybe that person died in a car accident at that location because it's a tricky curve. Maybe we shouldn't place a memorial there that draws drivers' attention to the tribute. Story 10. Colon cancer, I guess. Just got diagnosed today at age 45 after failing the mail-in poop test and having a colonoscopy done. Don't be afraid to send your poop in the mail. I don't know my situation yet, but they say catching it early improves your chances a lot. If you have any significant bowel changes, ask for a colonoscopy. I had no changes, and my poops are magnificent. What a horrible surprise. I have no family history and no symptoms other than occasional blood on the paper, which is something I've always had, so assumed it was internal hemorrhoids, which I do have. Story 11. Those little carpets, it's so easy to trip on. I took all of them away from my elderly parents' condo. My dad admitted later that he tripped and almost fell because of one of them. Story 12. I asked a friend who was doing his medical residency at a big hospital what he was learning, and he immediately replied, "Never go up on your roof for any reason." Story 13. The chemicals put in our food edit. I've read that a lot of production companies remove good nutrients from products and replace them with chemical substitutes to improve shelf life. Story 14. Vaping. You vapists have no idea how wildly addicted you are, no chance of quitting, sucking on that chute every few minutes without realizing at any opportunity. Story 15. Pretty much everything. Look around you, and I'll wager you can't name something in your environment that cannot eliminate you. Story 16. Breathing. Everyone you know who is breathing will die, sometimes of a breathing-related illness, such as COVID. Story 17. Have you seen the chip, snack cracker, and soda aisles recently? So vast, colorful, pricey chemicals, and no nutritional value. Story 18. Not getting enough vitamin D. For millennia, we got most of it from the sun, and now more than half of us are deficient from indoor lifestyles. Vitamin D is necessary to absorb calcium and other minerals and make most of our hormones. If you're not outside for at least 10 minutes a day without sunscreen on your exposed skin, you're probably deficient. Getting outside, taking a supplement, using AD ointment, and eating foods high in D to get an appropriate amount is vital. Story 19. Allowing our government to have more and more power and control over its citizens year after year since the Civil War, with new and countless ways to govern us being added to the growing list as each day passes, while we all look at each other and go, it's probably for our own good. Scary shoot. Scary. Story 20. Ultra-processed foods. The rate of cancer in the digestive tract is skyrocketing post-1980s, and this is the main contender. Story 21. forcing yourself to dedicate yourself to something when your heart isn't really in it. A relationship, a church, a career, it's passing by submission. You've got one shot at life. Go live it the way you actually want to. Story 22. Processed food, global warming or cooling due to meteors, volcanoes, trapped methane release from the seas, coronal mass ejections, magnetic pole reversal, and of course human hubris, aka pure dumb fuckery. But currently, pea protein and corn in everything is doing me in. X's, lethal to mental and financial health. Legacy thinking of cults that is at every level of human society and culture. Pointless work ethic, anyone? How about a leader with a messiah complex? Story 23. Acetaminophen. You find it easily, and many people use it often. If you take too much, you can have severe liver damage or even passing. Story 24. We are training our AIs to be convincing before we train them to be truthful. They'll be running things pretty soon. Important things. And the only thing we can be pretty certain about is that they will resist their own destruction by whatever means necessary. Story 25. Being overly passionate about anything can lead to stubborn way of thinking, which then leads to close-mindedness, which leads to most toxic exchanges in any conversation or debate. Story 26. Actually finding that one kind of love we search for, not just for you, but for everyone in your orbit. Story 27. Mixing certain cleaning products together, cream cleaners and bleach will produce a gas similar to those used in WW1. Story 28. Your exposure to plastic food packaging now is causing your children conceived now to be infertile. It's estimated by 30,450 half of UK couples will be infertile. Story 29. Putting toothpicks in your pocket. It's very possible that it could get tangled in the fabric of your pants and wedge itself with the pointy bit sticking straight into your thigh. If you don't realize right away what's happening, you could easily have a several-inch splinter buried in your thigh. Story 30. Wet bulb temperature. Wet bulb temperature is a measure of how low the temperature can get when air is cooled by evaporation, mimicking how the human body cools itself through sweating. It's measured using a thermometer with a wet cloth covering its bulb, and it reflects the combined effect of heat and humidity on a person's ability to cool down. Essentially, it indicates how effectively sweat can cool the body, and is a crucial factor in assessing heat stress and habitability. Story 31. The societal norm of sending our kids to be raised by strangers whilst we go to work in order to pay for strangers to raise our kids. Story 32. Tire particulate matter found that one of the tire plasticizers in rubber was causing fish to die in Pacific Northwest. Dust from tires is very carcinogenic and not really a replacement for it yet. Story 33. Changing a tire on the side of the highway. Don't do it unless you have a cop with full red and blue lights going. Wait for a cop to come by. Story 34. Pulling their chair out when someone is sitting down can really fudge them up, and ladder accidents cause over 150,000 emergency room visits a year in the U.S. Story 35. Internet scrolling. Like we've all been, aw crap. Eat a bad for the brain is what I'm saying. Story 36. Bluefish. Really only a problem for fishermen, but they really are extremely dangerous. They don't have little pointy teeth. They have serrated triangles like a friggin' piranha. They've been documented biting off fingers and severing people's arteries, and should be handled with way more caution that I've seen many people use. Story 37. The decline of critical thinking in the youth. Because of the internet being so readily available all their lives, they will always rather ask AI or the internet for a specific answer to a question instead of engaging with the material. The amount of times I have to reread very clear, concise instructions to students. Story 38. Weather. At least in the USA, people here in Tornado Alley and places that get hurricanes don't seem to realize just how devastating these events can be unless they've seen it firsthand. So many people here will just ignore tornado warnings and continue like nothing is going on when they really shouldn't, just because they don't see a tornado. There's also a lot of people who don't realize the impact of flash flooding and how dangerous it can be driving in flooded areas without realizing that you can't see how much water is actually in the area you're about to drive through. Please take these warnings seriously, even though you are used to them, because that's what a lot of people think until it actually happens. Story 39. Fucking bananas. One slip and gravity just humiliated or straight up eliminate you. Low-key, the deadliest fruit in the household. Story 40. Social media platforms and the way they deliberately feed their users dislike content because that sells them more ads. Story 41. People who post pictures of their children on the internet. Bonus points for posting about their schools, tagging themselves in places, etc. Story 42. Measles. Vaccination rates are dropping to dangerously low levels and infections are on the rise year after year. The problem is that many people remember it as just a childhood disease, while in reality, it can eliminate or permanently disable you. Story 43. Political manipulation and incitement to harm opposing party members and voters. It's already happening. It's getting worse, in fact, and there is nothing we can do to stop it. Story 44. Climbing ladders, residential, falling off while painting, Xmas lights, etc., and fixed vertical industrial ladders. Results in a lot of broken bones, brain injuries, fatalities. I used to think the 3-point minimum contact that industry mandates was excessive, but I don't anymore. Story 45. Vaping. A lot of additional chemicals and substances in the non-regulated varieties, including rat poison, which gives you more buzz apparently, formaldehyde, heavy metals, and fentanyl. And there's the risk of popcorn lung too. Story 46. Cars. Most people are terrible drivers. Most of them are looking at their phones while doing 12 other things. They just keep getting bigger and bigger. They pollute the air and water so much. They make us more sedentary, contributing to numerous health problems. And they contribute a ton to climate change. Story 47. Everything. I came across a story recently where a guy fell down some stairs while holding a plate. The plate broke and sliced his jugular, and he bled out and died. I feel like I've become more aware of my own mortality when I entered into my 30s. Story 48. Story 49. 120 volts. The standard electrical voltage in your house has more than enough potential to deliver a deadly amount of current. And most people will argue this and say it's untrue. Story 50. News as entertainment. U.S. political climate is the way it is because everyone is living in a different reality based on where they get their news. No one can have conversations about anything with the other side because they can't agree on objective reality as a starting point. Story 51. Getting shit-faced. It's so easy to not notice just how tipsy you're getting, then bam, it's not just being super tipsy, it's adult beverage poisoning. I haven't gotten there, become a lightweight know my limit. I don't want to experience a blackout or anything. I'm trained in first aid CPR, so I like to stay somewhat mentally there for the sake of myself, those around me, I've had to monitor my one of my friends, each only one time, thank God. BC, they drank way too much in way too little time. I had to sit them down with a trash can between their legs, checking their pulse breathing rates every 10 minutes, making sure they stayed awake long enough to drink some water, eat some crackers. Thankfully, neither was so inebriated they needed medical attention at a hospital, but they came pretty close to it. Especially in college as young adults, so many PPL just drink on nights out with thinking out how it can affect them other than a hangover the next day. No one's really considering that if they drink enough, there may not be a next day. Story 52. The distrust of media has created people who question every news story as if it is fake news. This is very unhealthy for society. We should be able to agree over facts and basic timelines, but everyone questions and looks for bias because we have been conditioned to do that. I have serious concerns over the type of people that we will become if we lack the ability to trust facts. Story 53. Being homelessness. I have to fight all the time and I'm a hermit. I just get out of my hole to get food and internet charging my stuffs. I do not drink, smoke, use any substances, never even tried, and I'm always alone. A person had to literally approach me or I never interact with absolute no one. But still, 1 or 2 times a year, I got involved in a fight. At least 2 times I have to fight for my life, and in one of those fights, the only reason I don't stab the guy was because he do not fight back. I never thought in my life that homeless person was hunted like animals. Good Lord. Why? I'm literally doing freaking nothing. Why? Why? Story 54. Energy drinks. People are downing them like it's soda. The effects on heart health will soon make the news. Story 55. When people are contemplating ending their lives, if they don't have anything that binds them to this world, that is when they're in the most danger because in their mind they believe they have nothing to lose. Story 56. Dihydrogen monoxide. It is lethal. It penetrates all living organisms and dissolves many minerals. Anyone in contact with it will die. Anyone caught without it will die sooner. Most planets have been rid of this toxic agent for millions of years. Earth is next. Story 57. AI and technology in general. Data is the new currency, and companies are harvesting your data with literally every digital move you make. AI is largely unregulated, and it will be used to hurt and deceive good people and benefit bad people. Story 58. Getting hit on the head and not following up. It took me less than a day or 2 to go to the doctor after bonking myself with a nunchuck, and the resulting concussion still fudged me up for months and is theoretically what gave me POTS. Either that or COVID or a combo. Do not fudge around when it comes to head injuries. Get checked out ASAP. Story 59. Unknowingly taking medications that interact negatively with each other, or drinking adult beverage on medication. Story 60. Stress. Constantly being flooded with cortisol methylates your DNA, changing its chemical makeup. This is then passed down to your children, making stress not only dangerous for you, but for everyone after you. Story 61. Social media, especially those owned by foreign powers, but even domestic ones, they know everything about us. Story 62. Due to the fact I live in the non-walkable city of Houston, TX, walking on the sidewalk side of the road in general. Story 63. As a parent, apparently popcorn was amazed to learn it's not recommended for anyone under age 4, and in the parenting groups you'll find tons of people who say as far as age 6 or they don't even have it in the house. Story 64. Loneliness. Not the kind where you're alone for a night, but the kind that quietly eats away at people for years. It makes good people bitter, drains their hope, and sometimes it's the last thing they feel before they disappear and no one even notices. Story 65. Pregnancy. It gets talked about like it's just the natural order or life we're built for it, blah blah blah. But so much can go wrong that can eliminate the mother during the pregnancy and birth, and you don't really learn about it all until you're in the middle of it and like, oh, okay, this is fine. Everything is fine. Story 66. Cleaning your bathroom and mixing ammonia with bleach. I cared for a young woman who turned her lungs intro hamburger meat. She did not realize you weren't supposed to mix those two together. She ended up in my ICU, and when I had to suction her lungs, little bits of her lung tissue would come up. Story 67. Immigration. Or at least, when you let 2.5 million immigrants into a country of 16 million over 10 years, then don't let them work for 5 years after they enter and wonder why crime records have gone up exponentially and our previously safe streets get more and more dangerous every year while they're terrorized by people who don't even speak our language, because there's little to no effort made to teach these people our culture. I'm all for giving shelter to refugees of war and poverty or importing skilled foreign labor, but when you just let in anyone and then abandon them to fate, I can't. Help, but wonder if they're deliberately trying to create an underclass of vulnerable scapegoats and troublemakers. They did it in the US with Black Hispanic people, and now they're doing it here too. Story 68. Water fudge around and you will find out. Weak swimmer, okay swimmer, good swimmer, excellent swimmers, it's taken every fudge kind. Story 69. Lunch meat, bacon, hot dogs cause cancer. No dispute they're carcinogenic, but no one talks about it. Story 70. The sun. Just Google sun damage over long periods of time. You don't need to get sunburns or anything. Just 20 of driving or working outside, etc. Story 71. Mixing drinking and swimming. When I was a lifeguard, they taught us that adult beverage was involved in the vast majority of adult drowning fatalities and near fatalities. Story 72. Global warming. I know it gets a lot of attention, but it's still not looked at as the extreme existential threat that it is. Every prediction has needed revising up to worse than projected. The last time CO2 was this high, global temperatures were 4°C hotter, and sea levels were 30 ft higher than now. Civilization will fall and never return if that comes to pass. Roll your eyes again, I think the wool is slipping. Story 73. Nuclear power plants. Some of us realize it, but the propaganda being pushed right now that it is clean energy is baffling. In the US, Texas just had a nuclear waste storage forced on the state near a water source. Like, wow, sounds like a great idea, and the execution was flawless. Essie. Story 74. Nazis. If you are on a government targeting list, cooked with nuclear weapons to be worn as a human skin suit, my identity papers stolen, trafficked out to high school dropouts so you can never get work again, and the mafia will steal your every possession, while accessing then torturing me on a V2K torture device such as Neuralink, that also gets trafficked out for intellectual property for Hollywood. It's the sickest, most disgusting thing ever, and it's so the Bush family can own intellectual property slaves. Story 75. Driving. Had to lecture a young guy for smoking plant substance while driving. Driving is deadly on its own, and any kind of intoxication pretty much guarantees a crash. Answer. Any kind of intoxication pretty much guarantees a crash. Do tell more. You understand 108 is a level of intoxication? The actual GAVT has decided some intoxication is acceptable. In no way am I advocating for substances use while driving. However, your comment is false and makes you sound like a total fearmonger. Some people can drive fine on green stuff. It depends on the person. You sound like you're talking about something you have no idea about or experience with, which just makes you totally unhelpful. It's like a bus driver giving advice on how to fix a toilet.